Okay, so apologies. This week's parsha is Parshas Shlach. Shlach literally means send, and it's the story of Moshe sending spies, Meraglim, to go ahead of the Jewish people. Okay, so just one step back to give a little bit, to broaden the picture a little. The Jewish people left Egypt, we got the Torah and Har Sinai, the plan is, the schedule is, we're going to go to the land of Israel. Hashem told the Jewish people, I'm going to take you there. You will conquer the land victoriously and safely, and you will inherit the land that has been destined to be your inheritance since the creation of the world. Now the Jewish people in the desert are wondering to themselves, okay, that sounds good. What about the people who are there? Maybe we should investigate, see who's there, see what's going on. They come to Moshe and they say, well, we're going to conquer this land. Maybe we should send some spies, see what's up. Moshe Rabbeinu asks Hashem if he should send them ahead, and Hashem says, Shlach lecha anoshim. Hashem says to him, and if you look in the parsha, that's how it opens up. It says, Shlach lecha anoshim, send for yourself. In other words, Hashem said, if you want to send, that's fine, your prerogative. I'm okay with you sending, you have my permission. Hashem never instructed Moshe to send. Hashem didn't say, send spies. He said, Shlach lecha, send for yourself if you would like to. In other words, I told you we're good. You're not confident, you don't trust me, you want to send spies? Go ahead. Suit yourself, kind of. That's part of the message, and there are a number of different messages and interpretations to be had there, but Hashem tells him, if you'd like to, you have my permission, no problem. Moshe sends these spies. The spies, whose job is, what is the job of a spy? The job of a spy is to collect data and to report what they saw. The job of a spy is to come, investigate, find things out, and report. One of the big mistakes that these spies made was they didn't just come back and give a report, they gave a report with a recommendation. They came back and they said, well, the inhabitants of this land are way too strong. There's no way, chazaku mimenu, they're stronger than us, stronger than Hashem. There's no way we can conquer this land. There's no way we can be victorious over the inhabitants that live there now. Forget about it, we can't go. Let's just cancel this whole thing. And the Jewish people all start crying and panicking and freaking out, and they don't want to go to Israel anymore. This is too scary. We're going to be in big trouble. And then Yehoshua and Kalev, 2 of the 12 spies. So Moshe sent 12 spies, one representative of each of the 12 tribes. 10 out of the 12 came back with this negative report and recommendation against following Hashem's instructions to go to the land of Israel. Yehoshua and Kalev, at first they're just quiet. They're just being quiet while the other 10 are giving this negative report and recommendation. And then Kalev pipes up and says, Im chafetz, if Hashem wants us to, we'll be victorious. And he says, Aloi nale, we will go up. Aloi nale literally means we will ascend. It's a repetitive, the word is repeated twice for emphasis, let's say. And so that's sort of what happens here. And as a result of that, the spies said we shouldn't go, and then the Jewish people agreed with them and started crying, we don't want to go, and panicking and freaking out and saying they don't want to go. And so what happens as a result of that? Hashem says, oh, you don't want to go? Fine, you can wander in the desert for 40 years until this whole generation has died out. And then I'll take in the next generation that wasn't complaining about me giving them the land that is their destiny. How about that? You don't want to go? Done. Done deal. So whilst we were supposed to basically just go straight into the land of Israel then, we end up wandering the desert for 40 years until that whole generation died out, and then the younger generation went into the land of Israel. So, but it's like, okay, nice story, interesting story, maybe not such a nice story. Okay, at face value, okay, story maybe kind of works. But as soon as you give this even a cursory second glance, there are a lot of things here that don't make any sense. Right? who are we talking about here? We are talking about the Jewish people who they themselves, in very recent history, were just in Egypt. They observed the 10 plagues. They walked out of the land of Egypt, which was magically escape-proof, and no solitary, not a single slave had ever escaped the land of Egypt. And here we have millions of people just getting up and walking out after these 10 plagues. They themselves were at the splitting of the sea. They saw the sea literally split and stand up and open up and allow them to walk through and fold over right behind them and drown the Egyptian army that was chasing them. These were people who observed the greatest, most explicit and obvious miracles possibly in all of the history of the universe. And then as they're traveling through the desert, they have these mystical clouds that surround them and protect them from predatory animals, and are leveling out the ground for them and taking care of everything. And they're eating literally magical food every day. We talked last week about them on. These are people who got a daily delivery of miraculous food from heaven. These are people who were in the desert and had ample supply of water because they had this magical spring, miraculous spring in the merit of Miriam, Moshe's sister, that would just give them an endless supply of clean, good water in the middle of the desert. These were people who had observed the biggest, most explicit, dramatic miracles ever. These were people who were still continuing to observe explicit miracles on a daily basis. The food they ate literally came down from heaven every day. How does it make sense that these people are saying, oh no, we can't go up. We're not going to be able to be victorious. We won't be able to succeed. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. These people were clearly aware, and had multiple daily reminders. Every time they took a bite of food, every time they had a sip of water, they had a reminder in their face of the fact that Hashem is not limited by nature. Hashem is the creator of nature, who is not limited by nature, and Hashem can do anything he wants. How are these same people saying, oh no, we can't go, we're too scared? That doesn't make any sense. And then on the flip side of that, one might expect, right? Imagine that we are we're making a play. We're writing a script for a play or a movie. Lahavdil. And, we've got the first part of the script, and we have the whole history up until now. That's already been written. That was season 1, and now we're at the top of season 2, and we're writing the script and continuing. And the spies just came back and they gave their report. And that was, maybe episode 6, and now we're at the beginning of episode 7, and Kolev stands up. See, episode 6 closes with Kolev getting up and about to speak. Curtains down. Episode number 7, season 2 opens up. Kolev is standing there, and he's about to come and oppose the narrative that they just got from the other 10 spies and try to convince them why they should follow Hashem's lead, the lead of the creator of the universe, and go to the land of Israel. What would you think that what would come to mind as the most obvious first argument? It's like, guys, hello, what are you missing? Did you eat mon today? Did you drink miraculous water from the well of Miriam in the middle of the desert today? Were you at Mount Sinai, where we literally heard Hashem's voice and the revelation of divinity, and it was so infinite that our souls couldn't even remain in our bodies, and we died twice until we begged Moshe to go and you talk to Hashem and then bring the message to us because it's too much. The revelation of infinity and divinity is just too much and we can't handle it, and we keep on dying as a result. Do you remember the splitting of the sea? Do you remember walking out of Egypt? Do you remember the 10 plagues? Like, what's going on? How can you think that we can't manage this? How can you think that if Hashem told us to do this, it's not going to work? Like, what? I've heard of short memories, but come on, this is pushing it. But that wasn't Kolev's argument at all. Kolev didn't say a peep about any of that. Kolev didn't try to convince them, guys, we can do this, obviously. What are you thinking? That wasn't his message. He was just like, Olay Nale, we will go up, we will ascend to this, sacred land, and Im chafetz banu, if this is what Hashem wants, we will go up and ascend. That's not really an argument. It's a position. He's stating his position. They said we shouldn't go. I say we should go. If Hashem wants us to, we should go. But he doesn't seem to have addressed their argument at all. Their argument was, we're not going to be able to. That doesn't seem like a very strategic approach. If someone comes and lays down an argument that effectively convinces a bunch of people to do something that you think doesn't make sense and you think the argument is wrong, it seems reasonable that your approach should be based on presenting a counter-argument to explain why their argument was wrong. He didn't address that at all. He's just like, we will go up, Alei Nale, we will go up to the land of Israel. This is what Hashem wants. We're good. So the question is, what were they missing? Question number one. Question number two is, why in his response doesn't seem to address their argument at all. He's presenting a contrary position to the one they presented, but they presented a position, i.e. we shouldn't go, with an argument about why we shouldn't go, and he doesn't respond to the argument at all. He just says, no, we should go. And ultimately, they were not, they bought into the narrative and the argument and the position of the first 10 spies, and they ended up staying in the desert for 40 years and dying out in the desert as a result. So there are two things here clearly that we need to understand, right? Because obviously we know that everything about this does make sense. If it doesn't seem to make sense to us, that means that there's something here that we're not quite getting yet, because it does make sense. And additionally, the Torah doesn't tell every story that happened, obviously, right? 40 years in the desert, one day in the desert, you have a community of millions of people in the desert. There were definitely lots, I guarantee you, there was lots and lots, infinite tea every day. There was lots of drama. Yes. No limit on the availability of tea. Guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
The Torah doesn't tell us every single thing that happened. So if the Torah chooses to tell us this story, there's a reason. It's Torah. Torah means teaching. There is something that the Torah is teaching us in this story. And it doesn't just tell us the story, it tells us the story in a lot of dramatic detail. If the Torah, which is here to teach us, to give us insight into why we're here and how we should go about being here, how we should live our lives, is giving us this story with so much detail. Obviously, these details are relevant, and there's an important message here for every single one of us. Because Torah is Horah, it's a lesson to every single one of us. It's teaching every single one of us. So, which part of this story exactly is speaking to us, and what's it saying? So, number one is, we're going to give a whole new layer, not even layer, just a whole new understanding into this whole incident, the interaction, the dynamic, the everything about it. Because the truth is that, yes, it makes no sense that these people who observed and were saved rescued from Egypt by the 10 plagues, the miraculous escape from the land of Egypt. They crossed the Yam Suf. They were at Mount Sinai and literally heard Hashem's voice to the point that they died and had to be resuscitated twice. Their current, at the time of this story, their daily diet existed of miraculous food that was literally delivered from heaven every day in miraculous water. The issue wasn't they didn't believe that Hashem was capable of granting them victory in battles against the inhabitants of the land. That wasn't their concern. Obviously, Hashem can do that. Their concern was entirely different. And we're going to see how it's in their words, what they said, and how that's what Kalev was responding to. Their concern was, and there are two parts to their concern. Part number one was, what did their life consist of, right? They didn't have to plow the field, they didn't have to sow any grain, they didn't have to harvest. they had a very relatively, for that time, a very, and maybe relative to any time, could become a whole conversation that we don't have time for, but they had more or less a pretty cushy life. They got ready to eat miraculous food delivered. They had perfect, nutritious, healthy spring water, unlimited supply. They were protected from the elements by the clouds. So what did they do? What did they do with their time? And the answer is, they studied Torah, they prayed, they meditated on divinity and on the purpose of life, etc. All of these things, that's what they spent their time on. Which is noble, that's admirable. There are a lot of people who, if they, let's say broadly, mostly that's what they spent their time on collectively. There are many people who, if they had that time available, would do other things. I don't know how many other things they had of access to do there, but let's just say, right? So the pursuit and the way they spent their time was relatively noble, relatively good, admirable, yes. And now, when they find out, you know what, guys, party's almost over, vacation's almost over, we're going to the land of Israel, we're going to have to fight for this land that Hashem promised us, and yes, Hashem is going to grant us victory, miraculously if necessary. Hashem promised us we'll be victorious, that's good. And you know what happens when we enter the land of Israel? No more miraculous clouds protecting us from the elements. No more daily deliveries of magical miracle food every day. No more unlimited supply of perfect water just showing up when you need it. You get in that land, you're going to have to work that land. You're going to have to work the land for food. You're going to have to physically work with the land for irrigation and water. And you know what? Again, this is something that, most of us probably don't relate to much at all, because for us, bread consists of going to the store and you don't even have to swipe your card anymore. You just walk past and wave your phone or your credit card or your watch or whatever it is past the thing and you're good to go. So you walk in the store, you take the bread off the shelf, you walk past, slow down a little on the way out, and that's your bread. We don't think about the fact that, all that the labor that went into it, and even the people who are doing the labor today. My guess is that they probably have, and if they don't have, they should have, an app on their smartphone that controls some remote-controlled, machine out in the field. It's not like they have to get out and stand behind an animal, a cow or a horse or a donkey, and actually plow the land in the sun the whole day. It's even for the people who are doing the labor, it's relatively easy. But pre-technology, every slice of bread that a person ate had who knows how many hours and real, literal sweat and blood and tears behind it. Every cup of water that someone had to go and get from a well and schlep up in heavy buckets up some hill. It wasn't easy. It wasn't fun. And most importantly, as far as they were concerned, this is going to take up like a whole life. These were people who were used to spending the whole day praying, meditating, studying Torah. Their entire experience was 100% connection to divinity. That was the entirety of their experience, and they quite liked it. And frankly, anybody whose priorities are on point should like the idea of that. It should be something enticing. And so they were just like, we're not going up to this land of Israel, forget it, not interested, sorry. And so what did they say? So first of all, they weren't interested, which was mistake number one. We're going to talk about mistake number two, and then we'll talk about why they were wrong. Mistake number one was not interested. Let's stay here where we're taken care of and we can just pray, study Torah, meditate on divinity all day. Who wants to go and then we're going to spend, maybe get a few hours of sleep. I guess back then they probably slept from, when it got dark until the sun came up, and then wake up and, quickly pray as quickly as you can so you can go out to the field and work out in the sun for the whole day until the sun sets. And I have time for anything. No spirituality, no connection to divinity, not interested. Who would want that? Who would want to choose that? That was mistake number one, because that was based on as we've discussed a number of times, a skewed understanding or perspective of values, let's say, and we'll elaborate. The second mistake was You know what? Let's focus on this one first. So where did they go wrong? Where they went wrong was, why are we here? Why does the universe exist? Why do time and space exist? They exist for a very simple reason that is stated in a Medrash. It says in the Medrash Tanchuma, Nis'ave HaKadosh Baruch Hu liyos lo dira betachtonim. Hashem had a desire to have a dwelling place for himself in Tachtonim, in a lowly, mundane, tangible, material reality. That's what Hashem wanted. Why? There are sort of two simultaneously correct and true responses to this. One of them is, it says Nis'ave, Hashem had a desire. In Yiddish you say, Afetaive is kinkasha nicht. Can I ask a question? Someone says, I feel like chocolate ice cream. Why do you feel like chocolate ice cream? Why do I feel like chocolate ice cream? Because I feel like it. Well, what kind of question is that? If you want to ask me, why do you think that it's a good idea to indulge that desire? That's a whole different question. But to say, why do you feel, well, what do you mean? Have you never felt like something? Do you not know how this works? That's how desires work. They show up and you just feel like it. So that's answer number one. Hashem feels like it. You don't have to explain why you feel like chocolate ice cream. Hashem doesn't have to explain. And there isn't necessarily an explanation for why Hashem has a desire to have a dwelling place in this low-down, mundane, material world. That's number one. Number two is, and they're both true at, let's say, different levels, or they're both two parts of the picture, perhaps, is that there's excitement in novelty. Things that are novel, things that are new, things that are not just automatic run-of-the-mill, are interesting. The more novel, the more different, the more new something is, the more interesting it is. Right? Think about, for example, if you have to buy a gift for a little kid, and especially if it's, let's say, a little kid who is in an environment of, let's say, very low economic status, it's not so hard to get them something that's going to be super exciting for them. You could go to the dollar store probably, and for 99 cents you could buy something that's going to be super exciting for them and make their week. If you had to buy something that's going to be, right, when you buy a gift for someone, there are a number of different things that make it valuable, right? Number one is it's the thought that counts. And that's a real thing, right? When someone buys a gift and it says, you know, I was thinking about you, I care about you, that's a very, very real thing. It's the thought that counts is a real thing. It's also the case, though, that like some gifts are more exciting than others, right? If all gifts were equally exciting, no one would have had to come up with this, you know, statement that it's the thought that counts, because we wouldn't have ever needed to say that to anyone because all the gifts would be exciting. Not all gifts are equally exciting, right? And part of what makes a gift exciting is if it's something, you know, let's just talk very simply. If you want to buy, if you want to buy a gift for someone, let's say general, simple, sort of basic, good idea for a gift is if you know that there's something that someone really wants, or like has expressed interest in, and they're like, yeah, well, that thing is so cool, I would love to have it. But either maybe I can't afford it, or maybe, you know, I can afford it, but honestly, all things considered, I am on a budget and I don't think the benefit justifies the cost, whatever it is. And then you buy that thing for them. That makes it, number one, obviously, the thought is nice. Number two is you bought something that's novel for them, something that they wanted that they weren't really going to have without you buying it for them. So that makes it exciting. Now I have something that I wouldn't have had you not gotten it for me, right? Where for some people, for some kids especially, for 99 cents you can get something that they wouldn't have really been in a position to have had you not bought it for them. Right? As people get older, their interests become more complex and specific. As people have more money, it becomes more, you know, difficult, or you have to be, again, more specific about what you buy them that's going to be actually exciting. You have to buy a gift for Elon Musk, Bill Gates, someone who has more money than they could spend if they tried. What are you going to buy them that's going to be exciting? Right? At that level of wealth, if someone says, you know what, that thing is not worth the money, it's not because it's not worth it in their budget. It's not worth it for them to take money out of their budget to get this thing for them. It's because they actually believe that it's not worth it. And if you buy it for them, they're still going to be like, this thing's not worth it. Right? It's not like Elon Musk is not saying, you know what, like I could afford it, but it's not really worth the money. If someone else would buy it for me now, that would be exciting. Not happening. So how could you buy something for someone who has effectively an actually unlimited credit card, an effectively unlimited bank account? How can you buy something for them that's going to actually excite them? You could buy them something that maybe something they never heard of, something they've never seen or heard of before, and they're like, wow, this is so cool, I love it. Right? Could they have afforded it? Yeah, but it's novel, it's new. Or maybe there's something that money can't buy. Maybe it's something that, you know, you have to climb out somewhere through caves and up cliffs and whatever to get, and you're the only person in the world who actually has the physical skill to go and get it. So money can't buy it, and you go and get that thing and give it to them. That might be exciting. Why? Because they couldn't have gotten it without you. Money couldn't have bought this. So now it's exciting, it's novel, it's different, it's not just same. A dwelling place for Hashem, to take divinity, to take the infinity of Hashem, and to integrate it into a reality that's already, that naturally is infinite and is naturally fully aware of the full truth of Hashem and divinity. And it's like, big deal, whoop-de-doo. Like, it's not really novel, there's nothing exciting. It's specifically in a layer of reality like the physical reality that we know and experience consciously, where there is more or less no conscious awareness of divinity. There's more or less no innate appreciation for godliness or spirituality, and things are very mundane and very tangible. You integrate divinity into that. That's interesting. That's exciting. That's novel. That's new. And so Hashem has this desire for, and you know, even go back to the chocolate ice cream thing. It doesn't matter how much you like chocolate ice cream or anything, whatever your favorite food is, if you eat that food 3 times a day for 20 years, it is going to be a lot less appealing to you than it was before you started that. Guaranteed. It doesn't matter how much we think we like something. If we eat enough of it, it's going to become, we might still enjoy it, but it will become a lot less exciting than it was. Right? If you have something that you never get to have, something that's, you know, maybe hypothetically impossible, it doesn't make any sense, and you get to have it, this is, wow, this is so cool, this is exciting. So Hashem wants a dwelling place in a mundane, tangible world, and in the mundane parts of it. To take our relationship with Hashem and focus it on praying and learning Torah and meditating on divinity and purpose and meaning, those are very valuable things to do. They are. But it's like, okay, like, you know, that's like so stereotypical, it's so cliche. And again, I'm saying this to make a point, not to devalue those things, because those things are very important. And honestly, most of us should probably be pushing more in that direction. But for the people, the spies in the desert who were pushing hard in that direction, and they were like, go to work, like do mundane things, yeah, that's so dumb, so lame. It's like, what do you mean? You could take your relationship with Hashem and integrate that and express it in doing spiritual things, which is like, duh, no-brainer. If you can take your relationship and connection with Hashem and express that and integrate it into plowing a field, into digging an irrigation channel in the ground, into, you know, all of the most mundane things, that's novel, that's interesting, that's exciting, that's what Hashem really wanted. If Hashem wanted meditation and spiritual experiences, Hashem would have created the angels and stopped there. Right? The angels exist in layers of reality that came before the physical, tangible one that we experience. Hashem would have created them and stopped. Hashem didn't stop. Hashem kept on creating and bringing things further and bringing into being layers of reality that are further and further away from himself, that are more and more tangible, more and more mundane, less and less in touch with the truth of Hashem and infinity, Why? Because that's the destination he wanted to get to, was the one where there is no innate understanding for an appreciation of spirituality, of divinity, of Hashem, of godliness. Because that's where integrating divinity, bringing Hashem into that layer of reality, that's where it's novel, that's where it's interesting, that's where it's exciting. For an angel to be inspired and connected, a big deal, that's what an angel is. For a human being with a Homo sapiens animal soul and Homo sapiens animal interests and drives and urges, to live in this tangible world filled with things that look very shiny and exciting to a Homo sapiens animal, let's say, which is what we are at one level, at one layer of who we are. And for us in this environment with this nature to then achieve insight and interest in spirituality, divinity, godliness, and then to integrate that and channel it into the mundane, that's very novel. That's not natural. That wasn't going to happen without us achieving it. It's an achievement. It's something new. That's interesting. That's exciting. That's what Hashem wants.
So if this is what Hashem wants, but the only thing that they've really known of Hashem is integrating spirituality into a spiritual life, if that's all they've known, how would they not have chosen the desert if they didn't fully know that he wanted spirituality to be integrated into a mundane life?
It's a good question, I would say, with the caveat that you're assuming that they didn't know this.
So how would they?
You're right that the majority of their experience had been an experience of that variety, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was due to lack of awareness of something better. It's just, that is what they were supposed to be doing then. Hashem was providing for them. Hashem was giving them protective clouds and man, and there's the spring of Miriam. So, what are they supposed to do? Scroll on Snapchat? TikTok? Sorry, Snapchat, Oliver Shalom. That was what they were supposed to be doing. The problem was that they caught up in that and lost focus on what Hashem wanted. And they clearly did have the insight, because what was Kalev's response? Ki chafetz banu Hashem. This is what Hashem wants. Guys, you're missing the point. It's like, is this ecstasy? Yeah. Is this utopia? Yes. Would I love to be able to just sit and meditate on spirituality and study Torah and pray all day and have magical food delivered every day and magical clean water every day and be protected from the weather and the elements? Yeah, sounds nice. But this is not the point. That's what he said. And then, so he says, Ki chafetz banu Hashem. This is what Hashem wants. He didn't say, oh, Hashem could give us victory because of the miracles, because that was never their argument. It was never their contention. Their issue was, yes, Hashem can do miracles. We know all of that. And when we have to be saved from Egypt, yes, Hashem can do miracles to save us. When we have to win the war to conquer the land, yeah, Hashem can save us. But what are we doing when we get there? When we get there, it's a whole new lifestyle. It's a whole new life experience. It's in the mundane. It's working hard. And what does it say? Eretz oicheles yoshveha, the Meraglim said. This land consumes its inhabitants. So what, at face value, we might understand that it's saying, it's just, whoa, the people are too strong. We're going to go there and they're literally just going to eat us for breakfast. They're so big and strong. It's like, no, that's not what they're saying. They're saying, Eretz oicheles yoshveha, this land consumes its inhabitants. We've been out here and praying and involved in spirituality and all of this. Why? Because our needs were taken care of. When we get there, we are going to be working, and we're going to be working hard all day, every day. What are the chances that we don't get completely consumed by that? What are the chances that we don't get completely sidetracked from spirituality and from this divine spiritual experience? Who wants that? So Kalev says two things. Number one, this is what Hashem wants. So you know what? You don't like it? Too bad, sorry. Tough luck. Number two, Kalev says, Alei na'aleh, we will ascend. Right, and he repeats the word, which, yes, again, at face value, first glance, it seems like, it's a literary technique, a rhetorical technique. It's repetition for emphasis. But it's more than that as well. Not to say that it's not those things, but it's more than that as well. Kalev says, Alei, we will ascend, na'aleh, and we will ascend again. He says, in in the desert, we're involved in spirituality. This is let's say, an experience of ascent. It's upward moving. True. When we get there, alei na'aleh, we will have two kinds of ascent. And it's not just like we'll climb up one step and then we'll climb up another step. Right? When you go up a flight of stairs, you don't say, I ascended 18 times because there are 18 steps. You say, I went up the flight of stairs. And if you have to walk up 3 flights of stairs, you went up 3 flights of stairs. But it's not like you went up and then you went up again, unless you stopped and got involved. Kalev's telling them, we are going to have an ascent, and then we will have a second kind of ascent that is categorically different to the first one. It's going to be on a different graph. It's a different category of ascent. It's not just a second one in a sequence. Whole different ballgame. What is that? What that is, an idea, going back to the whole thing of gifts. It's something that, I relate to from dealing with kids a lot. Someone will do something because they want to make you happy, and sometimes you think to yourself, and obviously this is probably almost never, if not never, ever a good thing to say to a kid, but it's like, you know what, you want to actually make me happy, maybe just make me feel happy, like do the thing that I actually asked you to do. Why is that? And obviously the best way to teach that is to live it and to show it, not to say it to a kid and then when they feel good about doing something for you, go and like dash that. And obviously that's not a constructive thing to do, but the message is true. What's the best gift you can give someone? To do the thing they want you to do. Do what they asked you. Someone's asking you, begging you to do something, you're like, oh, I did you a favor, which is something that I decided to do, and that thing you've been asking me to do, no, I didn't do that. Thank you. It's not really a favor. You just did something for yourself. It's when you do a favor for someone, when you do the thing that the person wants, that is the real favor, and that is a real point of connection, right? When someone does something for you that you want, that is them saying, but with actions, that is them showing, acting, I care about your interests. I'm doing the thing that you want. What forms a stronger connection? Doing the thing the person wants? Or, for example, let's say buying someone a very expensive, really nice gift that they're just not interested in. That little favor that the person really, really wants is going to make a much stronger statement and going to strengthen your connection with that person much more than the big expensive gift, because it's something that they wanted. When you give someone what they want, you are connecting to them. Right? There's, food, and there are all these things that are the pathway and the key to the soul. The real key to someone's soul is what they want. When you connect, when you give someone what they want, the connection that you form is categorically different to the connection you form with someone when you buy them a nice expensive gift that they're not actually interested in. Because now you're connecting to the person themselves through their desire. And so Kalev says, Chafetz banu Hashem, this is what Hashem wants. Is that spirituality stuff nice? Yes. Is it good and noble? Yes. But that's not why Hashem created physical time and space in this universe and this galaxy and this planet and the sun and the moon to perfectly balance and create a livable environment so that we could be here. That's not why Hashem did all of this. Hashem did all of this so we could integrate divinity into the mundane. So we could get out in the world and we could deal with people with mundane transactions and mundane activities and do them as a person who lives a Torah true life. Interact in the mundane in a way that's true to Torah. And when we do that, we are integrating divinity and infinity. In the desert, divinity, infinity, spirituality, godliness. What were they doing with it? Nothing. They were just like enjoying it. When we get out now, when we go and go to a business meeting and make a Kiddush Hashem, behave according to Torah values, etc., we do the mundane, go and, whatever it is, Maybe the things that come to my mind that make that point most strongly are not, changing a diaper, whatever it is. You just brought infinity into a diaper. Like, that's a bigger achievement than meditating on divinity in the desert, because that's like you didn't do anything. You had a nice experience. You didn't achieve anything. You take out the garbage with the right intent. You're integrating divinity into garbage. Now, as strange as that sounds, that's a pretty big achievement. That's pretty novel. That's pretty exciting to Hashem. So think about the connection you form with Hashem when you do that, relative to the connection you form with Hashem when you're just having a spiritual experience that you enjoy. It's like, is that good? Is it positive? Yeah. But we're talking about a whole different ballgame now. What they experienced were these explicit miracles, right? Yeah, Hashem, the 10 plagues and the splitting of the sea and the giving of the Torah on Har Sinai and the man and the spring of Miriam. All of these things were Hashem showing, I am not limited by nature. I rule nature. I created nature. I can break nature at my will. That's great. But when we go into the land of Israel, the spies said, we have to work in nature. The fact that Hashem can break nature is all nice and good, but when we go there, we're going to have to spend our days plowing the field and digging troughs and doing all of these things, getting involved in the mundane, working hard. It's going to consume us. The fact that Hashem's above nature, it might help us in the war, but how's that going to help us not get lost in the daily mundane things? And so that's where Kolev says, Chafetz bano Hashem, this is what Hashem wants. Which means when you do that, when you connect to Hashem via His desire, Aloi Naale, you are going to have an ascent to a whole different place than any ascent that ever existed before. Why? Why is Hashem not limited by nature? Because Hashem created nature. You know what else Hashem created nature? Hashem created the spiritual. And Hashem created the rules that govern nature, physicality, and the rules that govern spirituality, and the rules that keep them apart. Which means that when we connect to Hashem via His desire, what He wants, if you want access to someone's resources, if you can get something they want, that's going to be a pretty good strategy to get something out of them that you want, a resource that they have. You know what resources Hashem has? Hashem has the resources of absolute infinity that created the rules of the physical and the spiritual and keep them separate. Alei Naale, Chafetz bano Hashem, this is what Hashem wants. When you go and live a Torah true life, digging the field, having a business transaction, doing whatever it is that you're doing, these mundane things, that's what Hashem wanted. Which means that when you do that, you have an ascent in your relationship with Hashem, in connection to Hashem, that's in a whole separate category to your regular ascent to spirituality. Ole Naale, we're going to have a whole second categorically new kind of ascent in our connection to Hashem. And that connection means that we will be able to be involved in the world without getting consumed by it. Because we are here on Hashem's behalf doing what Hashem wants. So we have connection to the absolute infinity that created every rule that governs everything. Which means that with access to that absolute infinity, we can be capable of going into an environment in which it's very natural and easy to get lost and to get consumed by it and forget about our purpose, forget about why we're here, forget about spirituality, forget about divinity. But when we're there for the right reason, with the right intent, ki chafetz bano, doing what Hashem wants, we now have a second ascent in our connection to Hashem. We have a connection to Hashem. That means that we can go there and get involved and do those things without getting lost. Well, if Hashem went there, would He get lost? No. And we are there doing what Hashem wants because Hashem wants. Yes, we'd rather meditate and have a spiritual experience. But this is what Hashem wants. When we do that, we have Hashem's resources behind us. and we won't get lost. Now, obviously, just to clarify, that doesn't mean we can go wherever we want with noble intent. It's talking about a situation that the Torah allows. It's not saying, oh, halacha says don't go there, I could go there anyway, I'll be fine because I have the right intent. No, if Torah says not to do it, then you can't do it with you could do it with the right intent, but it's still the wrong thing to do. So that was their mistake. The two mistakes were misunderstanding the importance and the priorities, and number two was thinking that they wouldn't be able to do it. And Kalev says, you guys are missing the point. This is what Hashem wants, and when we do what Hashem wants, we then tap into the absolute infinity of Hashem, which means we can go, we can engage, and we will have, through that deeper connection to Hashem, the strength to be able to do that without getting consumed. I think the message is pretty clear.